All right, guys. Welcome to the third part of Aegon's Conquest, the series I'm doing on Aegon's Conquest. It's mostly just going to cover high level like fun facts and like what happens, basically just what happens throughout the conquest, as well as fun facts and stuff along those lines. This one, guys, is going to be the Field of Fire, the Fall of House Gardner, and the Lannister surrender. You can see my Lannister sigil with my Stark sigil. This is a new shirt I got. I'm liking it. It's a good one, guys. Anyways, again, this is gonna be the Field of Fire, the Fall of House Gardner, and the Lannister surrender. Guys, please like and subscribe to the channel if you can. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you can. And just high level, this video will discuss the events of the Field of Fire and what led up to the significant battle, and I will also highlight the aftermath of the battle, of course. With that being said, let's get into the material. Okay. So the first part, the meeting at Golden Grove. Pretty cool castle in the Reach. Mern the Ninth of House Gardner and Lauren the First Lannister meet to discuss what they're going to do about Aegon. And sorry, guys, I know this map says Tyrell and not Gardner, but this was the best map of the Reach I could find. We will explore later in this video how the Tyrells become Lords Paramount of the Reach, but as of now, the Gardeners of Highgarden control the Reach. So again, you have an image of the Reach. In the top left is Mern the Ninth, and in the top right is Lauren the First Lannister. Lots of L's and T's with Lannister names. You notice that, like Tyrion, Tywin, Lauren, etc. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyways, pretty cool map of the Reach. It has pretty much every house in the Reach, except it doesn't really show Old Town, so that's you can't get it all here, guys. Sorry, but essentially, Mern and Lauren agreed that they needed to team up to have any chance against Aegon. And at this time, guys, these two guys have really big armies, so they thought like going into this, oh, we have a pretty good chance at winning this. But remember, guys, Aegon has 3 dragons, and Balerion at this point is really big. Meraxes is pretty big, and Vhagar is actually kind of young. Vhagar's only like 50-ish years old at this time, 40 years old. So Vhagar would probably be like the size of like Syrax in House of the Dragon, if that makes sense at this time. Or Cyrax, however you want to pronounce it. And at this point, Aegon, he does have the 3 dragons, the Stormland army, the Riverlands army, and the Crownlands army. So he has 3 smaller armies. Like the Reach and Westerlands are much, much larger than even those 3 armies combined. The 2 kings and their armies met at another large castle, Golden Grove, which is the seat of House Run. Golden Grove is probably the 3rd most populated, largest castle / area in the Reach, behind Old Town and Highgarden. Golden Grove is also strategically in the middle of Casterly Rock and Highgarden, thus this made sense to meet there. As you can see, the Gardeners had to march north, and the Lannisters had to march southeast to get to Golden Grove to meet, but it's kind of in the middle of their 2 castles. So the 2 armies commanded an enormous host, for sure bigger than Aegon's army, like I previously said. And looking at quote 3 in more detail, notice that all of King Mern's sons attended in the battle. This will be important later, and we will get into that again later on in this video. The host did not want to sit too long at Golden Grove because, one, they may run out of just food and resources because, again, they have a very large host. I believe the next slide we'll get into the actual number, but they might run out of food and resources, and Aegon's 3 dragons could come and burn them all. So they knew that, so they needed to go on the move. So the host moved quickly northeast towards the Riverlands and Crownlands. So they would move where it kind of says like Roxton, guys, in the far right of that Reach map, and like Roxton, they kind of marched that way from Golden Grove, where the arrows are pointing to. The host marched near the present-day Golden Road. This actually road would not be built until Jaehaerys came into power, and it wouldn't be built until 55 AC. So about 50 years later, the actual road was built. And the area they marched toward is known to be dry, flat, and great for harvest growth. So this is like where they're marching is a very like fertile area. It's like the Midwest of the United States. It's a very fertile area of Westeros. But that's a little bit of an introduction to the battle and the 2 kings meeting, the 2 Western kings meeting, and they're now on the march to meet Aegon. So Aegon gathers his armies. So Aegon calls his banners to meet at the Stony Sept. So again, you can look at those arrows. You get the large armies from the River Run going south. That'd be southeast, and Aegon's army from Harrenhal marching southwest towards the Stony Steppe. Sept, excuse me. Like I previously said, Aegon's army was significantly smaller than the two Western kings, but again, Aegon and his sisters have three dragons. At this time, Aegon's army only consisted of around 10 to 15,000 soldiers compared to 55,000 men of the Westerlands and Reach. Additionally, most of his host was made up of river lords who just came under the command of Aegon, so he was not sure if he could totally trust even his own bannermen quite as of now. They've probably only been under his control for like a week or two. So they all meet at the Stony Sept. And then the two queens actually meet Aegon at the Stony Sept. And just a little background about the Stony Sept, guys. It's a religious town just north of the Blackwater Rush in the Riverlands. It's the Stony. It's like it's basically kind of like the Vatican City, but for like the Faith of the Seven. It's not its own like country, but it's like a very religious community, like castle area, etc., whatever you want to call it. And actually, guys, this is the town Robert took a refuge in during Robert's Rebellion 280 years later when John Connington and the Loyalist Targaryen army tried to track him down. But of course, to no avail, Ned Stark ended up saving Robert at the Stony Sept. So the Stony Sept actually has some significance later on in a pretty significant battle. But the three conquerors took flight on their dragons as the river lords marched southward to meet the Western lords. So they're basically going to clash. The Western lords are marching northeast, and Aegon's army is marching southwest, and they're going to clash right around where the Gold Road and the Blackwater Rush meet, and we'll find more about that in this next slide. So the Field of Fire Part 1, the build up to the battle, so right before it happens. So you can see, guys, I circled roughly where the battle takes place, just south of the Blackwater Rush, near where the Gold Road is, but wasn't in this time. And you can see the black arrow, which represents Aegon's army, and the green and red arrows representing the Western King's army, and they are clashing just south of the Blackwater Wash. I would say that's probably about 80 to 100 miles west of King's Landing, roughly. And again, the location would be in between the Riverlands, the Reach, and the modern day Crown Lands. And so when the King's scouts reported back to them that they were very happy because they knew they had the advantage. They had five men for every one Aegon had. So Aegon has roughly 10 to 15,000 at this time, and the Western Kings have about 55,000. So it is a pretty big difference in terms of soldiers and lords as well, and mounted knights. But Aegon has dragons, which are like lizard nukes. Anyways, the day they met on the field near the Blackwater, it was dry, sunny, and windy. The two Western kings thought they had the advantage due to their cavalry and horses. They had more mounted men than Aegon did, and they thought this would give them the advantage. King Mern and Lord of Old Oak in the western reach on the Sunset Sea were planning to flank Aegon's army on each side. So, since King Mern actually brought more soldiers to the battle than Lannisters did, he kind of got to lead the army, but as you'll find out, that may have not been a good thing for him. Aegon, like the two kings, notices the field is very dry. And before I say anything in the next slide, just think about what that means when a field is very dry. And the Targaryens have dragons, and with that battle commence the two Western armies charging towards the Targaryen spearmen and crush them easily. So at the very beginning, it's looking pretty good for King Loren and King Mern at this time. However, Aegon and his sisters were already in the air on their dragons, which is going to lead us to part 2 of the Field of Fire. So part 2, guys, I do apologize about the text, but I do think this is good stuff, so I do recommend reading it. And I did make a mistake. It's on that third quote. It's not page 22. It's page 21. So actually, no, it'd be 21. My bad, guys. Anyway, so the Field of Fire part 2, the fall of House Gardner and the Lannister surrender. So like I said, pay attention to that dry portion of the text in the last section. Balerion, Meraxes, and Vhagar go nuts here, and the field literally turns into fire. If it had rained the day before, for example, it may have not been so easy for the conquerors, but luck was on their side that day. So this battle was pretty brutal, and at the end of it all, King Mern and House Gardner died with it. His entire family died, which is pretty brutal. There must have been some females alive from House Gardner, but I guess Aegon just did not see that as a viable option. It's got to be, but Anyways, instead he gave the keys to Highgarden to Harlan Tyrell. So this is actually where we see House Tyrell start. So House Tyrell got its start during the Conquest, and obviously we will see it end. You actually see the end of House Tyrell. Obviously, it's probably going to be a little different in the books, but we obviously see the end of House Tyrell in the Game of Thrones show. So actually, House Tyrell only lasted about 300 years. So pretty short-living house. Additionally, for a major house, I should say, a lot of the smaller houses, like a lot of those lords who controlled Harrenhal, this is a side note, but a lot of those lords who controlled Harrenhal, like, were dying off every 20 years. But for a major house, this was a pretty short period of time. Additionally, House Tyrell is the third new house created due to the Conquest, including Houses Baratheon of Storm's End and House Tully of Riverrun. And now that the Gardeners have control of Highgarden, what's going on with the Lannisters? Loren Lannister managed to flee, but within a few days, Aegon and his army captured Loren, and he bent the knee to Aegon, and then Aegon named him Warden of the West. And again, guys, sorry for all the text on this one, but I thought it was pretty important to put a lot of text on this slide. But that is all today for part 3, guys. The next video will discuss the simple and easy conquests relative to this of the North and Val, as well as what happens with the Principality of Dorne. So I'll cover the North, the Val, and Dorne in the next video, which will be part 4. And I've realized, guys, it's going to have to be a 5-part series, and the 5th video will cover the closure of the conquest and what happens at Old Town. Anyways, guys, that's it for me today, and thank you. And please like and subscribe if you can.